There were 22 missed calls on my phone. That's what I woke up to after walking out on my daughter's ultimatum. But I wasn't prepared for what I'd discover when I finally went back to the house. I stood in my own kitchen, but nothing felt like mine anymore. 2 years ago, my daughter Adele and her husband moved in with me. After my husband died, I was so lonely. I thought having them here would help. I was wrong. What I didn't know was that he was planning something much worse than controlling me. My son-in-law started small. Comments about dinner being late when I served at 6 instead of 5:30. He told me how to organize my own pantry. He'd never even bought groceries. She would just nod, her eyes avoiding mine. The same girl who used to defend me against playground bullies now sat silent while her husband criticized my cooking. She'd become a stranger wearing my child's face, repeating his complaints about towels left in the wrong bathroom, mail placed on the counter instead of his desk. I started sneaking around my own house. I was scared to make noise when he napped. I kept saying sorry for being in my own house, but soon I discovered the real reason he wanted me gone. The ultimatum came on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday until it became the day everything changed. I'd prepared lunch. Turkey sandwiches with the mustard my son-in-law preferred, chips arranged on plates instead of served from the bag. But I'd served myself first, then my daughter, leaving his plate for last while I cleaned the counter. His face darkened. The silence stretched until my daughter's voice cut through it. Her words were clear. Treat her husband like the man of the house, or find somewhere else to live. Her words stayed in the air, heavy and clear. The child I'd raised, protected and celebrated for 28 years, she was giving me an ultimatum in the home her father had built with his own hands. I walked upstairs and packed my suitcase. No tears, no arguments, no dramatic speeches about betrayal or ingratitude. Just packed my clothes quietly, the same way I used to pack her school lunches. 23 minutes later, I wheeled my bag past them both, watching Adele's mouth fall open and her husband's confident smirk falter into something that might have been surprise. The hotel room smelled like strong cleaner. I sat on the edge of a bed that had hosted 1,000 temporary lives and wondered how I'd become one of them. The silence felt different here. Not the comfortable quiet of my own space, but the hollow echo of displacement. I thought a hotel room would be quiet. Then I checked his phone. The first night stretched endlessly. I almost called my older daughter 3 separate times, my finger hovering over her contact photo, the one where she's laughing at her college graduation, proud and independent. My older daughter deserved to know what was happening, but shame kept my fingers frozen. How do you explain that your own child chose a man over her mother? How do you admit that you'd raised someone capable of such casual cruelty? Day 3 brought the first missed call from Adele. The phone buzzed against the nightstand like an angry insect. Then 5 more calls. Then 12. By the end of the week, my phone showed 22 unanswered calls and a string of increasingly desperate texts that painted a picture of panic I couldn't quite understand. The messages started apologetic, then turned pleading with an urgency that felt wrong. Adele claimed her husband was sorry, that they both wanted me to come home, that the house felt empty without me. But something in their panic tasted bitter, like fear wearing the mask of regret. I'd left my house key behind intentionally, severing that final connection cleanly. But I remembered my son-in-law's habit of leaving his phone unlocked during his afternoon naps, a detail I'd noticed during the months I'd served him tea while he dozed on my husband's recliner. Sunday evening, I used my spare garage key to slip inside while they were out grocery shopping, my heart hammering against my ribs like a bird trapped in a cage. The house felt like a crime scene where I was both victim and investigator. I moved through rooms that should have welcomed me, past furniture that had witnessed my humiliation, toward the phone charging on the kitchen counter where I'd served that last meal. The bank records told a different story. My money was drifting into his accounts. His phone revealed transfers I'd never authorized, money moving from my accounts to his like water flowing downhill. Small amounts taken regularly, disguised as legitimate household contributions, but adding up to thousands over months. Bills paid twice, once by me in cash, once by him electronically, with insurance refunds and overpayments mysteriously disappearing into his personal accounts. My hands shook as I took pictures of everything. I had proof now. The grocery money I gave Adele, he used it for gambling. I thought he was paying the bills, but he was charging me twice and keeping the extra money. But the gambling apps shocked me most. Thousands lost in online poker, sports bets, virtual casinos. He had lost thousands. Now I knew why he needed my money so badly. He always told me to be careful with money while he was taking mine. What I found next would destroy everything I thought I knew about my son-in-law. I drove straight to my attorney's office with all the printouts, my hands shaking on the wheel. Her reaction told me this was bigger than I thought. She spread the papers on her desk and said one word: fraud. What she showed me was worse than I feared. My attorney had helped me since my husband died. She was always patient with me. She spread the documents across her mahogany desk like police evidence, her usually gentle voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. The financial abuse was worse than I'd imagined, more planned and careful than random theft. My son-in-law had established automatic transfers from my checking account, amounts small enough to avoid triggering fraud alerts, but significant enough to fund his gambling addiction. He'd used my excellent credit to open store cards without my knowledge, making purchases that never reached my house but charged to accounts bearing my name. My attorney's fingers traced paper trails that revealed months of planning. The man who'd claimed to support my household had been slowly taking it while positioning himself as its financial head. But her next revelation stopped my breath entirely, leaving me gripping the leather arms of her chair. He had attempted to add his name to my house deed, forging my signature on fake papers with handwriting that almost matched my own. Only a routine bank verification call had prevented the transfer from proceeding. The loan officer's questions about my husband's military pension-raising flags that saved my home from theft. She recommended both civil and criminal charges with the confidence of someone who'd seen this pattern before. The evidence was overwhelming, the intent clear, the damages quantifiable. I signed the papers with the same steady hand that had packed my suitcase, reclaiming my voice one signature at a time. I thought I knew my son-in-law. I was wrong about everything. The call that changed everything came 3 days later. My daughter's voice broke as she asked why police had shown up at their door at 7 in the morning, why detectives were asking about financial documents and bank records, why her husband had been taken away in handcuffs while neighbors watched from their driveways. I explained everything in measured tones that surprised us both. The secret transfers that had drained thousands, the gambling debts that had motivated his urgency to control my finances, the attempted deed fraud that could have left me homeless in my own house. Each fact landed like a stone in still water, creating ripples that grew wider with her silence. My daughter's sobs echoed through the phone, raw and broken in ways that reminded me of her childhood heartbreaks. She claimed ignorance about the money, swore she'd never known about the gambling, insisted she'd believed his stories about supporting us financially. Her voice carried the hollow ring of someone whose world had tilted off its axis, leaving her grasping for solid ground that no longer existed. The investigation revealed layers I hadn't suspected, connections that painted him as a predator rather than an opportunist. He had similar schemes running with an elderly uncle in Phoenix and a former roommate's grandmother in Miami. My case wasn't isolated. It was part of a pattern that spanned years and states, targeting women who'd trusted him with access to their homes and hearts. 3 weeks later, my daughter appeared at my hotel room door with eyes red-rimmed from crying and confidence replaced by something that looked like grief. She apologized for choosing him over me, for allowing his manipulation to poison our relationship, for being too blind to see what he was doing to the woman who'd sacrificed everything to raise her. But apologies couldn't erase the memory of her ultimatum, couldn't undo the choice she'd made when loyalty mattered most. Some wounds heal with time, others leave scars that serve as permanent reminders of what we're capable of surviving. I returned to my house a month later, walking through rooms that felt different now, not because they'd changed, but because I had. Adele had moved out, staying with a friend while she rebuilt her life and her sense of judgment. The spaces where trust had been broken were slowly being repaired, one careful conversation at a time. She visits on Sundays now, bringing flowers and careful words. We're rebuilding slowly, brick by brick. The woman who once demanded I serve her husband now pours tea in my kitchen, careful and respectful. The house is mine again. His conviction brought restitution for every dollar he took and a restraining order that keeps him away. My daughter works 2 jobs now, pays her own way, and is learning how strength feels. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with a mix of admiration and regret. The mother who walked away found her voice in court. The woman she underestimated protected herself, and others, from a predator she unknowingly welcomed into my home. My older daughter calls more now, checking on both her sister and me. She's proud I acted, though she wishes I'd called her sooner. Family secrets grow in silence. I won't keep them again. The missed calls from that first week remain, 22 reminders of panic after months of quiet disrespect. I keep them to remember that panic often reveals what comfort hides. That evening, the doorbell rang. I expected a neighbor with leftover pie, or my daughter with another apology. Instead, it was a detective holding a small evidence bag. Inside was a spare key to my house, my signature photocopied 3 times, and a printout from his notes app with one line circled in red: Fry 7 o'clock, change locks. He hadn't just wanted my money, he had scheduled my absence. They'd found the key taped under his dashboard. The detective said it was likely the one he used to slip in while I was out. I turned the key in my palm until the metal warmed, felt the old fear loosen, and carried it to the drawer where I keep my own keys. I closed the drawer and let the click settle the room. Across the table, my phone lay face down, the same phone that once buzzed with 22 missed calls. I left it silent. My daughter learned that some ultimatums backfire. I learned that walking away can be the strongest choice. The house is quiet again, a different quiet. Not the silence of loss, but the peace of boundaries restored and dignity reclaimed. If this were your home, where would you draw the line?